Hello, everyone, and welcome. Michael here with Thirdstone Properties. In this video, I'll be covering the closing process of a house. Um, First thing, I kind of use an example of, a pretty standard contract. Uh, and in this one, I used, so we went under contract June 20th. And and what it means to be under contract, just so you understand, it means all parties have signed. The buyer and the seller have both signed, and it's been completely delivered. And what that means is like I've delivered you that contract. So say, it got signed 11 o'clock at night on June 20th, but we didn't get it until the next day, and I didn't deliver it to you until the next day. Technically, it would be the 21st that it starts. And our timelines, our due dates and stuff like that, they always start the day after the contract has been delivered. So I hope that makes sense. But the first thing would be the binder deposit, also known as earnest money deposit. I usually put 3 days on that. In this example, I put 3 days. So saying on June 23rd, you need to have this money in, or you've really actually violated your contract. So make sure we get those binder deposits in pretty quick. And keep in mind, those are always refundable during your due diligence period, which is your home inspection period. So your money's always going to be safe. So make sure if you're working with me or if you're working with another agent, just make sure like that's safe. That's always the most important thing, keeping your money safe. That's always what I strive to do every time. And this one, it looks like I used 4 days as a loan application due date. It's usually 5. But for instance, this one would be 4. That just means you have to have your loan application in. Like they gotta have ran your credit. Basically, it's got to be started within that period. Like you got to pick your lender in that time. Hopefully, you've already picked your lender. Most people have already got their lender picked. I prefer you to have your lender picked before we even get into all this. It just prevents delays. The next thing is, whoops, kind of skipping over here. The next thing is our home inspection deadline. And I got on here too, home insurance deadline. I mean, it's not really like technically a deadline for that. It's more or less something you want to do in that same period. So once you get your 4-point inspection, you want to make sure you're getting insurance quotes to make sure there's no problems. Because if there's problems, we want to know about it before our due diligence period's over. And the types of home inspection you're going to get, we'll touch on that a little bit. I'll kind of cover all that stuff. And then in this example, I use a 35-day closing. Honestly, the standard's usually like 30 days, but in my personal experience, it doesn't typically happen in 30 days for whatever reason. There just always seems to be a delay. So I usually try to get 35, just gives us a little more time, gives you a little more time where we don't have to do extensions. And a lot of times we still even have to do extensions. But once we get under contract too, go ahead and send the contract to your lender. Please include me, like when you email it to them, CC me as well and introduce us. That way we can communicate. Sometimes lenders need to reach out to me and tell me things, and you may not be available for, whatever. It's good for me to get that information at the same time. So always make sure you're doing that. So again, the first thing is to get that binder in. Always check with the title company. I'm going to give you the title company's information. That's who's going to hold that binder deposit for us this whole time. They're a disinterested third party, so they're always going to, make sure that money's safe. It's not going into seller's hands. But I'm always going to give you that information, but always make sure you're calling. Even if I got a PDF, so a lot of times I'll have a sheet. It's like, hey, here's the wiring instructions. Always just call to verify, because there's so many wire frauds and stuff going on right now, so many scams and people faking emails and stuff. So just be cautious. Just make sure you call it in. Make sure you verify you're sending it to the right place, and then send it to the right place. Not a big deal. And who holds the binder? That would be the title company again. The next one's home inspections. This is probably the most important time period, I think, in this whole transaction, because this is your due diligence period. This is the time where you can get any inspection you want on that property. You can tear that place apart, find everything. We want to try to find everything we can possibly find wrong with it. And that starts with the home inspector. They're going to walk through. They're going to they're basically their job is to tell you everything that's wrong with it. Sometimes it's a little much. They go a little overboard with it, but at the same time, I'd rather someone do that than not report problems. Um, so very important period. Again, the standard on that's usually 10 days, but always double check your contract. Sometimes I'll do 7 days, like if they're really adamant about it. I've already seen it in person too. The 7 days isn't terrible, but sometimes it's not enough time. We just want to make sure we got enough time to do everything. And the types of inspections, and of course, why do an inspection? Same thing. It's to cover your butt. Like inspections typically cost. You're usually going to pay between $400 to $600 or so, but it's so worth it. You always want to do it because they're experts. They're trained to find problems. You want those people looking at your place. And there's different types of inspections. One is just your general home inspection. That's what we're mainly going to be using. And we can use these things to request repairs as well. We can use these things to maybe even request a reduction in price. Like if we find, this roof is, shot, needs to go. They're going to tell us at that point, we may need to negotiate. Hopefully we already know that information before we're even going into all this, but that's not always the case. So you got your general home inspection, then you get your 4-point inspection, which your inspector could do at the same time. The 4-point is what you're going to want to send to the insurance company. So never send them the full report, only send them the 4-point. And they're going to quote you insurance based on that. And the 4 points, it's basically your big ticket items, your roof, your HVAC, your electrical, your plumbing, but maybe a few other things, but it's pretty much going to cover it. And then wind mitigation is common here in Florida. We do get hurricanes. So wind mitigation is going to help lower your insurance. So just probably get it done. It's usually not going to cost you much more, if anything. So I would just go ahead and include it with every inspection that you do. And another big one is the WDO. That's wood destroying organisms. So that's going to be checking for termites, mostly termites, and other kind of pests. But the main thing is they're going to crawl under houses. They're going to get in attics. They're going to check, make sure there's no extensive termite damage, and make sure there's no live activity that needs to be addressed. Important on, like, if you're getting, wood frame house, very important. You want to do that no matter what. If you got a block home that's on a slab, really great chance there's no termites, but you still have an attic. There's still wood up there. Never hurts to get one done. It's a little extra money, of course, but again, you're covering your butt. Another one is if there's a well or a septic tank. These things are, obviously everybody's trying to get away from those, but there are still houses that have them. We don't see wells too often, but we do still see them every now and then. But we see a decent amount of septic tanks as well. So if you ever have a septic tank, make sure you get an inspection. I don't even care if it's like pretty new, just get it inspected. The average replacement costs on a septic is like, I think, 8,000 to 12,000. So might be something you want to know. So the next thing is home insurance. Again, like you probably want to do this during your home inspection period, just in case there's there's issues and we need to get addressed, or they're not going to insure the house. We kind of want to know these things pretty quick, because if we need to pull you out of a deal, I'd like to be able to pull you out of the deal during our due diligence period. However, this is kind of covered in your finance contingency period. So you can't get financing without insurance. So if the house fails to be able to get insurance, you're technically still covered under that finance contingency, which is typically 30 days. Again, check your contract and make sure 30 days. It's not like written in stone or anything like that. So it can vary. So always make sure you're checking these dates to make sure you're on the right, you and your agent on the same page of this stuff too. So again, just shop for insurance. I would recommend using a broker, because they're going to shop all these different companies and try to get you the best rate, really. But again, only share the 4-point inspection. Do not share the full inspection. So number 5, working with your lender. So it's just time frame to finalize the lender. Again, that was standards 5 days. Again, that could be different based on your contract, but I'll just pick a lender as fast as possible. Ideally, pick it before you even place offers. And your lender through the whole period, I mean, they're going to request so much stuff from you, especially once you get to the end. The underwriting phase, they may ask for some ridiculous documents from you and some letter from your employer. There could be all kinds of different things. Just don't fight them. They have to do it. Just give them whatever they need as fast as you possibly can. Because the quicker you get stuff to them, always be asking them to, hey, you need anything else from me? You know, when I was buying my house, I would ask them at least once a week, hey, you need anything else from me? Is there anything else? Because I want to, you know, I like to make sure things get done in a timely manner. Also, order their appraisal early. It's never too early to order appraisal. Just get it ordered like right away. Because that's usually the most common delay in every transaction I've ever done. It's where we're waiting on an appraiser. So if you do it early, good chances we get it done in 2-3 weeks. If we get it done in 2-3 weeks, good chance we're going to close in 30 days. But if we're waiting week 3 to finally order their appraisal, you're not going to be in time. We're going to need extensions. So get it done. And if for whatever reason we need to pull out of the deal at some point, you know, we're going to know these things before their appraiser actually gets out to the house. So you don't owe that money until the job's complete. So keep that in mind. I would wait maybe day 6, day 7 into the contract, get their appraisal ordered at that point. That's what I would do personally. Number 6, working with the title company. Title company, kind of what they do, you know, they're running like lien searches. They're making sure there's clean title on the property. Make sure there's no open permits, stuff like that. I'm going to check those things for you too. But we're all human. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I forget to check them. So just always make sure you know, you're checking with the title company, and they're going to have us all covered. That's their job. Their job's to check and make sure the title's clean. But you're buying a house with no open, you know, permits, stuff like that, because that can cause problems. Make sure there's no taxes owed, you know, all that stuff. All that's like, people can't sell a house with owed taxes. So you never have to worry about that, especially when you're using a title company. We always do one. So they're going to keep you informed as far as dates. When it gets closer to the end, you know, always check with title company, like, hey, are you ready? You know, and a lot of times they're waiting on your lender. So make sure your lender and your title company and your real estate agent are all on the same page. They're all communicating together. Even if you need to send an email with everybody CC'd, just do it. Yeah, I mean, there's no harm in doing that, and it's just going to ensure like a smooth process more than anything. And it says here like who orders the survey. This is based on the contract, so it could be the buyer, could be the seller. I think it's more common for the buyer to pay for the survey, but honestly, it's probably 50-50. The good thing about this too is usually me personally, when I'm writing a contract, I check that if the seller already has a survey. They, you know, if they bought the house, you know, 5-10 years ago, whatever, they have a survey from that purchase. Most people actually do. I just check that, like, hey, if you got one already and there hasn't been any changes, everybody's cool with that. You know, there's no need for anybody to buy one. So that's going to be our first shot. But if the survey's on you, there's not one available and you have to get one ordered, the title company would take care of that for you. Just make sure you let them know that you want to order one. And when you're getting a financed house, if you're doing cash, not a big deal. You don't have to do one. But if you're going to finance, you have to do one no matter what. So that's another thing to make sure you're checking. And surveys, I mean, they're not too expensive. They're usually like, you know, between $300 and $500. All right, moving on. And then number 7 is the closing. So this is your final underwriting phase. So this is, again, I feel like every lender needs something from you very last minute. You know, hey, we're 5 days from closing and they need a document, they need something from you. Again, make sure you're getting it to them as quickly as possible. I know sometimes it's annoying, but they have to do it, so just get it to them. We all want to complain about it. I've been there personally, but just got to do it. And at this point too, once title receives their closing documents, once the lender's done and they get it over to title, at that point you should get, it's called an ALTA, but it's basically a draft of your closing. So you should have they'll try to give you a good bottom line here. Here's what you're going to owe. Typically, you're going to get that a couple of days before the actual closing. It's like, hey, this is the amount of money that you owe the day of closing. And again, that money is typically wired. If you're local, you can just take in a money order the same day, or you can still wire it. But most people, that are doing a remote closing, to just wire the money over. I would recommend doing it a day before closing. That way the money's there on the day of closing. Because technically it's not your house until it funds. So say you send the money the day of closing, it's not really going to close until the day after. So keep that in mind. I would send it a day early. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If you ever have questions, always make sure you're asking your agent, you're asking the title company, you're asking your lender. 3 people that are a big part of this, and even your home inspector. A good home inspector will take your call, will answer your questions. So if you have a question about the inspection report, if you want to know if something's a big deal or not, call them, ask them. They should be more than willing to help you. Your agent should be able to help you with that too, because we tend to see the same things over and over. But yeah, that's pretty much gonna do it. Here's our information here. Just a little disclosure at the end there. Gonna do it. Thanks for watching.